Hey guys, welcome back to another video. My name's Timon, this is Slide Adrift. In this video, this is part 2 of a series of videos about placing my diesel with an electric motor and all the steps along the way. If you haven't seen the first one, I suggest you go back and watch that one. That's just got to do with the whole design and where I got all my bits from and what bits were included. In this video, it's basically just swapping it all out. So removing the diesel engine and actually installing the electric motor. So let's get to it. Okay, brace the prop shaft. That's the very first step and I actually forgot it. I'm not sure how. I missed it and it's definitely giving future Timon problems. Best way to brace your prop shaft. If this is your prop shaft, cut a semicircle, the exact shaft diameter. Let that sit in there and then brace. So this is obviously going to be made out of plywood or something like that. Then brace this up inside the engine compartment or wherever it is. And then once you disconnect the coupling, this will just sit snugly on there, and assuming that it's perfectly aligned to begin with, then when you go to align your electric motor setup, all you got to do is line it up. I didn't do this and now it's giving me vibrations and I'm going to have to sort of do it after the fact. Definitely recommend it. Here's another hot tip. Also, at this stage, you might want to mark up exactly where the shaft is, because once the coupling's off, that shaft is going to be able to move and you're going to want to know exactly where it was and where it's supposed to be. And also maybe put a locking collar or some way to stop the shaft from sliding out the back of the boat once the coupling's off. And if that goes out, then it's straight down into Davy Jones's locker. Removed the battery box so I could remove the exhaust system. The exhaust system was so unbelievably difficult to get out. I'm convinced someone bought an exhaust and decided to build a boat around it. All the oil that's dripped out of the exhaust system. One major reason why I'm swapping to electric. You know, that little bit's just constantly going into the ocean, you know? No good, no bueno. I enlisted the help of my brother Benjamin, thanks Benjamin, and we got to work removing as much as we could off the engine so it'd fit through the companionway better. Then it was time to remove the diesel tank. 60 litres, we got a couple of jerry cans, and a neighbour said he'll take it, as long as there's no diesel bug in it, he'll take it and put it in his boat, which is good, so we won't have to get rid of it. After giving about half the diesel away, I remembered, hey, I've got a ute that runs on diesel. Woo! Look at all that space. I can't get the throttle apart to take it off the inside of my cockpit. So I'm going to do what any rational person will do and I'm going to cut it out. Yes! When we disconnected the engine mounts and made sure that the engine could slide out unobstructed, there was a bit of brute force involved.
These aren't the droids we're looking for. Let's move on.
These aren't the droids we're looking for.
My coupling just had 4 bolts through it and they were actually pretty easy to get off. Because the aft half of my coupling had a roll pin straight down through the middle that I was going to have to hammer out, I made a support to place underneath the shaft. So this is called a roll pin, apparently. Roll pin, maybe because it's been rolled up like almost the whole way. Once the roll pin was out, I used some gear pullers to get the coupling off the shaft. Yeah, it's hot. So as usual, when you cut off one head, another rises in its place. Got that coupler off, which is awesome. There's no keyway. So now my new coupler has a keyway and I just need to see what the go with that is. How do I get it on? Will it work without a keyway? I'm not sure. Gonna have to look this up. Okay. And water still works.
I'm leaking.
Is it really? It's not. I went up the mast and installed a pulley in the main line we were going to use to remove the engine. In order for this line to be unobstructed, we also had to remove one of the glass panels of the Dodger. Okay, everything's set up and is ready to go. I'm just going to run you guys through. What did you describe it before as?
Madness.
Madness. Madness. The madness in bunny ears. Alright, got a main sling, around the motor, the engine, and that is connected to an engine block which we can hoist up. The gearbox is still through this hole here, so the whole engine needs to move forward before it goes up. So to do that, we've got a 3-to-1 pulley system here off the mast to actually pull it this way. One of us will just hold on to that tail of the sling and stop the engine from wanting to go into there. From there, we're going to pull the engine up. Once it's in the air, we'll take off these engine mounts. The engine will come up through this hatch. I've got this line set up, so once the engine is out, we can pull it more this way and get it onto a shipping pallet. And I'll just show you how I've set up the ropes up the top. I've got the boom stayed off on both sides, so this boom doesn't want to move anywhere. The engine block is going through a pulley here with the force more or less running straight down the mast, and then I've got the rope running all the way to the top of the mast where I've got another pulley. I've got the rope running down the front so that the force is going straight down the mast. I don't want any sideways forces on the boom or the mast. And then this rope runs all the way to the bow of the boat where I've got another pulley and sling, and from there it runs all the way back through one of the cars and to the winch where we can adjust the height if necessary. Just want to stop the video there and give you guys a bit of background on myself. So I'm an arborist by trade. Rigging and pulleys and forces and all that kind of stuff is basically my bread and butter. So I didn't just go into this thinking she'll be right. I definitely knew exactly what gear I was using, how that gear has been treated in the past, what's a safe working load of all that gear, and also the angles that I was working with and the pulleys and all that kind of stuff. I estimated my diesel engine was probably going to weigh about 200 kilograms, 200, 220. That's what I based all my figures off. Just know that if you are ever working with pulleys, there is some weird forces that go on with pulleys. These forces, a lot of them I know off the top of my head, but you can actually look them up. For instance, if a rope is running straight up through a pulley and straight back down again, and let's just say it's holding 200 kilos like mine, the force on that pulley, so whatever the pulley's attached to, in my case the very top of the mast, the force is about 400 kilos, so it's twice, like double. So these tables are all over the internet. If you're unsure, look up these tables. Yeah, so it wasn't all just a she'll be right attitude. There was a lot of sort of mental arithmetic going on in my head. When the rope was going up through the boom, first I really wanted to make sure I've got a solid gooseneck fitting. For anyone that doesn't know boats, that's the fitting where the boom connects to the mast. Mine was super beefy. I estimated that the rope running through the pulley at the boom was only deflecting about 20 degrees, and that's going to give me about 35% of the force. And if we're talking 200 kilos, that means about 70 kilos is getting pushed through the boom into the mast. Obviously the mast has got to be able to take it, but it definitely could. And B, that fitting is very, very, very important. When the rope goes up to the top of the mast and back down again, I knew the mast would be able to take 400 kilos, although that is a lot. Basically all the forces running down, straight down the mast into the keel. As long as the forces are running straight down the mast should be able to take a fair bit of load. If you imagine a little bit of dowel, let's just pretend this is dowel, and if I try and snap this, if I'm pushing the force sideways on it, it's just going to snap really easy. But if I could somehow, and this is basically impossible, have my whole body weight standing on this stick without going sideways, like if you could set that up properly, this would support my whole body weight, like it wouldn't snap. Which goes to show how things can handle different forces in different directions. Sorry if that was to get a bit technical on you, but yeah, I feel like I needed to explain that. I was like 90-95% confident everything was going to work out, but we definitely, me and my brother, we were definitely like, there's an element of unknown there. Basically now I've just got to give you a legal asterisk. I'm nobody and I know nothing, and if you're going to copy what I do in this video, you're definitely going to die.
Should I put a life raft on?
I don't have a life raft.
You don't?
We should definitely put life jackets on though. Up please. Yeah. Okay, slowly till it wants to shift. Yep. Okay, hold it there. When the main rope had just taken the full weight of the diesel engine, I ran around and just checked all my attachment points, all my fittings, and made sure everything was right. Nothing's rubbing wrong there. That looks all good. Up there looks good too. Oh yeah. After attempt number 1, we realised she wasn't going to fit out the companionway, so out came the grinder. First fire on board. Whoopsies. There was a lot of adjusting of all the little bits we had going on, but eventually we got it out.
Stop. Go down, go down. Yes. Up a bit more. Okay, now down. Down. Nah.
You lost it? Are you sure? What if I help? Ready? 1, 2, 3. Oh my god! Removing the engine from the cockpit was actually more difficult. After many failed attempts, I resorted to the 5 guys that work out technique. The narrow platform besides the boat meant that you were either just about to go for a swim or holding on from a really awkward angle. Once we all left the boat rose significantly higher out of the water, making it more difficult to get the engine over those lifelines, and the weight in general was just really awkward, with the engine here very nearly becoming a man-made reef. Okay, down.
Hold your feet. Oh, my hands are going.
Oh, it's easier once we got room. Okay, down. The motor is gone. The diesel is gone. This boat is a mess. The diesel is gone. I am so much more happy. Thanks to Frank for buying it and helping out, and Mitch and Benjamin and Eric and Anya and the kids and Christoph. Thanks everybody. So a weight has literally been lifted, feels like off my shoulders, but realistically off the boat. So I'm going to just coat the whole of the inside of all this so it all looks nice and white. White again, white and new. This was a particularly enjoyable step because the whole engine compartment looks clean again. Probably for the first time in like 40 years. That looks a million times better. If you guys didn't know already, all my stuff went through a flood. I have discovered this plate on the back, and I opened up the plate and you can see it's all sort of brown in there, and there was still water in there from 1 year ago, and it's not looking great. I've just been in contact with Tully from Electric Drive Engineering. He said that if I sent it back to him, he could replace this chip, and apparently it has to be aligned with the shaft or something like that. For a brand new one of these, it's $1,500 plus GST plus postage. $1,750 Australian dollars, which is this much US dollars. With postage there and back and just replacing the chip, $500 roughly. I just thought inside here there wouldn't be any electronics, but I should have known looking at that. I should have known there was something in there that I should have got access to and cleaned, just like I cleaned everything else. So anyway, what's done is done, and lesson learned. First, I upgraded the bearings on my motor housing to ones that could handle the thrust loads of my electric motor. I also had to sand the little shaft that came with the motor housing. It ended up being a fraction of nothing too thick. So I sanded the inside of the bearings, and I also sanded the shaft.
My motor housing assembly uses a 2-to-1 pulley ratio, so that means the electric motor is spinning twice as fast as the shaft. I decided to renew my engine mounts. This was before I found out they were going to cost $550.
I have this big bit of 316 just lying around. Cut these two sections off, take it to a place, hopefully get them to weld this into what I would call just 316 T-bar essentially, and then that way I can reuse these initial mounts, and then I'll just have to drill holes in for the second mounts here. Time to get the grinder out. Back on the boat, and the lady at the cafe gave me 2 for 1 because she said I have to get rid of them, and I was like, I'll get rid of them. So I've marked up little areas that I want to cut out. So now I'll just get out the grinder and grind these bits out, and then the flat disc to make it all nice and flush. If I can, I'll tend to over-engineer something if possible. So this will definitely be over-engineered. Now I've just marked up exactly where I need these holes to line up with these ones down here. And now I'm off to do my least favorite thing, drilling through stainless. The stainless is drilled. You guys can see all that. So I think I might have finally figured stainless steel drilling out. I've got some very good stainless steel bits. I'm starting off with like 2.5. I'm going super slow, like super slow. Once I get through with 2.5, I keep on jumping up by either a half or a mil, and I just keep on going up. Once it actually cuts in properly, the drill literally goes around only a couple of times before it fully drills through the stainless steel. I also use a lot of cutting fluid. I've always been just like going slow, but little bits coming off for ages and ages and ages. But this method is a lot quicker and a lot less painful. And then after 10 mil, I used one of these things, have no idea what it's called. That actually was awesome as well. So, winning!
I installed the motor supports onto the motor housing, installed the shaft, and then ran it for a test fit.
Starting to look pretty cool. Pretty cool. At the fore end of the main shaft before the coupling is a 10 mil hole. What I am going to do with this, on my coupling, does have a little keyway, if you can see that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tap it into the hole at the fore end of the previous shaft. So about 5 mil of it sits proud of the actual shaft, and then my plan is get the angle grinder or the Dremel and grind this down to this exact keyway size. That's the plan anyway. I literally just need to get around the corner, which is like an hour away just down the canals where the boat's getting hauled out, and then I've got a marine engineer shop to machine me in an actual keyway for this. In the meantime, I think this should get me out of trouble. Don't know if the camera is going to pick it up, but I had to have 2 attempts at it. Now that fits super snug in that tiny little keyway. I don't want to blow my own trumpet, but yeah, that's pretty bang on. If I did blow my own trumpet, it'd probably sound a little bit like this. looks pretty cool. Looks like an octopus or something, like grabbing onto its prey. Almost there, almost there, almost there. Onto the wiring harness.
I epoxied up the 2 bits of marine ply that I made for the backing for the key and the throttle, made a gasket for the throttle, and then fixed it all in place. I reinstalled the throttle right where the old throttle came out. This happened to be a really stupid spot. People were kicking it all the time, and I think it's a lot more fragile, so I'm definitely going to have to relocate it in the future. I made up a positive and a negative battery lead, connect the wiring harness, and also connect the electric motor.
It works. The cooling system. Disregard this hose here, that is just the outlet for my sink. Cooling system runs from a pump there, goes up to the highest point where I've got a T-fitting. This T-fitting just goes down to this thing. I can remove that and hold that up in the air above that fitting. I can run the pump and just circulate the whole system, and any air that's in the system will get out at the top and then just come into this reservoir. I've also got that reservoir so I can top up when necessary and make that nice and easy for me as well. But in the meantime, it just sits in its little holder there. So it goes from the pump, pumps up here, down through the radiator, up, out of the radiator. It comes down into the cooling plate. That's in between the motor housing and the motor controller. Goes through the cooling plate, comes out of the cooling plate underneath the electric motor, and then comes out here, goes through the electric motor, back out into the pump. And then I've got a 12-volt fan on the front of the radiator, and it actually turns on from this little relay, which is powered from the wiring harness. So the wiring harness will tell the relay to turn the fan on when the motor controller gets to a certain temperature and above.
My maiden voyage ended up being me just motoring 2 hours around the corner to a place called Boatworks, where I was due to get hauled out and anti-foul and do a whole bunch of other stuff.
It's working! It's working!
It's working! It's working!
It's definitely a new feeling, sort of like, obviously you can hear the electric motor, but it's sort of just like a loud hum, and we're just like slipping through the canal. Very cool. Let's go a bit quicker. Pulling 35 amps and doing 3 knots. And time remaining about 12 hours. That's good. It's very good. It's just nice and chill. And no fumes. No diesel fumes. Ah, that is awesome. One cool thing with this boat is this tiller. I can pull it all the way back up here and sit in my favorite seat and just steer the whole boat from up here. It truly is relaxing with an electric motor. It's enjoyable. I almost think I should whisper. It sort of reminds me of like a gondola ride or something, because I can hear the slightest of splashes from the wake back there. The slightest of splashes, and just sounds like the oar leaving the water and going back in as they're slowly pulling it through. Hey, that's it for another video. Yeah, made it. If you guys got this far, oh man, I really appreciate it. Consider subscribing perhaps. If you guys got any comments or questions about the system, or questions about anything, or anything that you want to see in particular, make sure you leave it in the comments. I will 100% respond. There is a third video to this series coming out, which is just going to be basically all the data. So how much power the boat's pulling, at what speeds, and all that kind of stuff. So that will be coming up in the near future. I'll get that out to you guys as quickly as I can. But until then, okay, bye.